Thank you all for coming. Good evening. Really appreciate you being here. I think it's going to be a fun evening. John wants me to point out. Can you believe we've been doing this for 98 months? I mean, you just got to go, what is wrong with these people? So it's a lot of fun, honestly, and I hope we are making somewhat of a difference. This evening I've asked Doug Olson to open the meeting with an invocation, and then it'll follow with the pledge. So why don't you all stand up at this point?
Ladies and gentlemen, if you're ready, then let's pray. Our Lord and our God, thank you for giving all of us this opportunity to be here this evening, to think, to talk, to share ideas. We ask that you would give us wisdom, that you would give us direction, that you would give us courage, that you would give us strength. Again, thank you for the opportunity to be here. In Jesus' name we thank you. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States. And I want you to know that's Ruth Ryan's husband, Dale, who they made a special trip, and he is a son of the American Revolution, and they weren't scheduled to be at the ceremony, but they wanted to be. So I thought that was really special. And I've got a story to tell you about the Trump buttons. So as you can see, I had my deplorable. I was really happy to be part of the basket of deplorable buttons on, and a Matt Shea button. So that's why I wore these tonight. And I was sort of thinking maybe they were going to tell me that wasn't appropriate for the ceremony and take them off, and I was going to tell them about the First Amendment. But they didn't do that. And so there I am. But I've got to tell you, John dropped me off at the corner to walk over to the courthouse. On the way to the courthouse, I had 3 people stop me and tell me they loved my button. I got into, where they check you out, you got to put all your clothes and everything in the basket, and they put you through the security there. And the guy that was doing that says, "Saw your button, I really like it." Yeah. Then those of you that have been around for a while know that I've had my hips replaced, so I always turn on all the buzzers. So the guy doing the wand likes the button. So I go, whoa, this is fun. Get in the elevator. I'm in the elevator with 2 CPAs that were having to go to the 7th floor to the 5th floor for the IRS. They said they'd rather go to the 7th. And they liked the button. In fact, they asked me to step aside, and they wanted to give me their cards and tell me what they thought should be done with the IRS and all this kind of stuff. I'm going, okay. And I get up to the 9th floor, or the 7th floor, and that's where everybody was, had more comments about the button. So it was, what I want you guys to do is find some of these Trump buttons and wear them all the time, because the people that are out there that support Trump are not the everyday people that you're all associated with. And they're there, and they're happy, and they love seeing somebody wearing the button. Sorry Matt isn't here yet, but nobody liked his button. But no mentions about Matt's button, but whoa, my deplorable button was crazy. So there was my deplorable button. And then I had a lot of friends join, and that was really cool. I appreciate all of you so much. That was fun. Oh, I had a gentleman come up after the ceremony, and he was just very sincere and nice and talked about the button, and I said, "Would you wear it if I gave it to you?" And he said yes, and I said, "Everywhere?" And he said yes, and I gave him the button. So now I need another one. So you can have a lot of fun with those, and it's really nice. It's uplifting for me to know that there's so many people walking around the streets of Spokane that are supporting Trump. So it was an exciting day. On the national, usually we go through national issues and state issues and, county and all that kind of stuff. Not going to do that tonight. I'm just going to highlight a few of the things happening nationally. And to me, probably the most surprising and possibly in our lifetime the most momentous is the announced talks between Kim Jong-un and Donald Trump. I'm having a hard time understanding all the pushback on this, but darn it, it's there. And if the talks do accomplish denuclearization, or a path to it, I mean, what are you going to lose? So why push back? If they don't, what's really changed? Nothing. So let's pray and let's see what happens. So we've got that situation, and we're just going to have to see what goes on. We've got Tillerson out and Pompeo hopefully in. Of course, there's a ton of pushback on that. But, it's pretty darn hard to have a Secretary of State when you're not on the same page. And so when you look at the disagreements, Tillerson didn't really agree with the approach to North Korea. He definitely thought we should stay in the Paris Climate Accord. Didn't like how Trump responded to Charlottesville. Didn't like the U.S. Embassy moving to Jerusalem. And he thought the Iran nuclear deal was just fine. So I like Rex Tillerson. I thought he was, I think he looks good, he talks good, all that good kind of stuff. But how can you as president have a person with that many differences going out and representing your administration? Pretty darn difficult to do. So I think that was okay. The Pennsylvania race, I do want to talk about this just a teeny weeny bit. And only because, first of all, right now, the difference is 627 votes. A libertarian got 1,379 votes. So you can see what happens in these small races of what one more cog in the wheel can do. The other thing that you've got to understand is Lamb actually presented himself on the same platform as Trump. Lamb is pro-life. He's a Democrat, but he's pro-life. He's anti the Iran thing. He's pro-Korea. He's all the things. I mean, it's sort of like he's using the playbook, and this is what he says he is. And what I heard on Saturday, there was a Republican big meeting thing. And I heard something from the stage that really disturbed me. And what it was somebody said, we had a huge win in 2016, and we've got to continue it. And I want the Republicans to understand that they did not have a win. Trump is supported by Trump loyalists, and they're made up of all factions of this country. They're made up of Democrats, they're made up of independents, they're made up of Republicans, and they're made up of people that possibly have never voted before. And so to think that you have a county that won by 20% or 20 points for Trump, so therefore this guy should win, you're smoking something, because Trump loyalists are more about change, are more about throwing out the establishment, and they are not all going to march lockstep. So thinking that you can rest on your laurels because Trump is in there, I don't think you need to do that. So I think the Democrats caught on to something. They have a Democrat that says he doesn't like Pelosi, and he's pro-life, and he's pro-gun, and he's pro-this, and he's pro-that. Goodness knows how he'll vote. But what I do want you to know is that don't think that because Trump is, quote, a Republican, that all Republicans are going to win, because that's really not how, to my way of looking at it anyway, it goes. So just a little word to the wise. Do want you to know that this is the very first replacement section of the wall that's happening in El Centro. So as you know, Trump visited San Diego area and he looked at the protocols and all that good kind of stuff. This is an area of the wall that just was collapsing and is absolutely of no value, and it's money that's been appropriated some time ago. But I just want to give you a couple stats, because sometimes we don't think about why do we need this border security and stuff that way, and if somebody could turn down the air, that'd be great. For fiscal year 2017 in this El Centro sector, they apprehended 18,633 illegal aliens. They seized 5,554 pounds of marijuana, 483 pounds of cocaine, 1,526 pounds of methamphetamines, and 2,521 ounces of heroin. And during that same time, 21 assaults against El Centro sector agents happened. So the deal about border security is real, it's alive, we need it, and just, you know, you need to keep focused on that. I'm too warm. Upcoming events, I'm going to do upcoming events, but I'm not going to go into the rest of the stuff. We'll go right to the panel. Hopefully they'll all get here. That would be great. I put pieces of paper on your tables. There are pens in the back if you need them. I didn't give you a cheat sheet this time with everything done for you. So if you have events that you want to go to, you need to write them down yourselves. The Constitution Party meets tomorrow, and they're talking about the duty of the jury, and it's a video presentation. They meet at Sherry's on Sullivan in the Valley, and 7 o'clock at night. So if that's of interest to you, that happens tomorrow, as does Tim Fitzgerald's 2018 kickoff. That is tomorrow also at the Red Lion Inn at the park, 6 to 8 p.m., and he has a guest speaker there who he served with and is very familiar with the Korean Peninsula, the Korean situation and things that way, so would be an informative kickoff to go to. Friday Morning Breakfast Club. I think Rob is here. I know on March 16th, this Carl Tompkins will be there talking about doing business God's way. They meet at 7 in the morning at the Something Else Deli, which is at Sherman and 2nd, is that? Right in around there. And you pay $5 and you get coffee. And they have great pastries and things that way if you want to purchase them. Do you know who's coming on the 23rd, Rob?
Possibly Joanna Repsol Hyatt, who will be speaking later tonight.
Okay.
She'll be speaking on the school district adoption of possible adoption of Planned Parenthood curriculum for sex education.
Okay. And then on Monday, the 19th, the Republicans of Spokane County meet. And from what I understand, it's more or less a business meeting, electing officers, going over their club and that type of thing. They meet on Mondays. I guess it would be the third Monday of the month at the Quality Inn, Mission, and Argonne. Then we have an event that we've helped facilitate. There's a group putting it together. We have an author by the name of Michael Stickler coming. He'll be there at Center Place, and I have flyers in the back. The book that he's written is Cliven Bundy, American Terrorist or Patriot. And very, very interesting story. I think the guy will fascinate you because he really ended up in a situation where he was in the same detention center as Bundy, and so got to really learn about him, and it's sort of it's a biography type story. But when he published the book, that was in December of 2017. And of course, we all know in January of 2018, probably one of the most remarkable things happened in that whole thing, and that was the trial. And they sort of suspended the trial in December, and then the judge in January came down, and because of all of the misrepresentations, the lies, the false evidence that our U.S. government had provided, The case was dismissed without prejudice. And when you think that 97% of all cases that the federal government brings against their citizens were found guilty, this is a remarkable, remarkable outcome. And I'd really encourage you to come and learn about this, because he's not the only one. And we'll have literature about other cases that are very, very similar to this. And it's just absolutely crazy. Now, something that I am going to put up here, and I normally don't at this time, is our little donation thing. And the reason I'm doing that is if any of you would like to support this event, please see me after, or drop a little extra in the little canisters, because besides paying for the venue, there are other costs, and I'm a little short on the budget, so if you guys could help out, it would sure be appreciated. Going on, so that's Friday, and then going on to Sunday, we have a gentleman by the name of Joey Gibson. And how many of you know of Joey Gibson? I think he's the Patriot Prayer person. He describes himself as a conservative libertarian. His issues are term limits, fair taxing, lower health care costs. He is running as GOP against Cantwell. So again, a younger person. He is really, he's been labeled as an alt-right person, which when you really look at it, he isn't. And he gets, eggs thrown at him and that kind of stuff. And good guy. So really think that will be a good situation. Go see him, check him out, see what you think.
Leslie Haskell came by and told me that there is no march. It is going to be a rally, but there will be no march.
No march. And also, if you could step into the kitchen, you reminded me, Leslie said she dropped a bunch of flyers off here, and I haven't seen them, so possibly somebody could help us find them. That would be great. The Spokane Republican Party, the SCRCC group, is having something they're calling the SPO GOP PAC, Saturday, April 14th at Center Place. It's more or less for teaching you how to get involved, how to move things along, all that good kind of stuff. So it's to train Republicans for activism. So would you mind? You might have somebody else do it, because I know your knee hurts. So that's something, and I believe Brian Standow and Beva Miles have information on that. So if you guys stand up and wave your arms, if you want to know about this event, you can see them. Then on April 11th, Larry Haskell is doing his kickoff. That's at the Chateau Rieve at the Flour Mill, lower level. And April 11th, 6 to 9. Are you getting tired of these kickoffs yet? And then we'll just do a real quick plug for Lincoln Day, which isn't until June 2nd. So you got lots of time to worry about that one. So it's a busy time, and that's what happens this time of year, Session's out, so you guys can actually talk to us about your campaigns now, and everybody's starting to gear up and filing and doing those kinds of things. So we've got a lot going on. So what I want to do is welcome the group of people that we've invited here this evening home from the Olympia swamp. It seems that we have swamps all over the darn place. And I got to say, what a session. We saw this, the difference is when one seat in the Senate is lost from a Republican to a Democrat. We lost the 45th by over 10 points to Munka Ningra. I always say it wrong, so I don't know how that goes. And it was really heartbreaking to see so many bills pass with 25 Democrats voting, or the one independent voting with them, and 26, and just voting in a block. And you see the same thing in the House. There it's we've got 48, they got more, and it's just boom, 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 this block voting. So I'm sure that you know everybody that's here, but I do want to introduce them. And just so all of you know, in the Senate, what they have are 49 members. They've got 25 Dems, 23 Republicans, 1 independent. And in the House, we're 48 to 50, I believe, is what it is. So we have got to switch those around this session, because this was darn brutal. It was not nice. So I'm going to ask them to come on up, and I have seats up here for them so they can see. But I do want you to know that our 4th District is represented extremely well. We have Senator Michael Padden. I believe I saw him come in. I'm put them in order here. So he'll sit there, and we have Representatives McCaslin and Shea. I'm going to get there, Joan. And as you can see, they represented us extremely well, because they earned these stellar grades from the liberal group, the Alliance for Gun Responsibility. That is a West Side liberal group, and I just really love that F-. Whoa! And we might have to talk to Senator Padden about that questionable C grade. I'm just not sure about that one.
He's never got a C in his whole life.
F-. I mean, that's a winner. Whoa. Then we go to the 6th District. We have Senator Baumgartner and Representatives Holy and Voles. So there we have a D+. So you did better. You did better than Padden there, Michael. So we've got. I'm doing good. So we have Jeff Holy, Mike Voles, Senator Michael Baumgartner.
That's my college transcript.
That's your college transcript. Woohoo! And then in our 7th District, we have Senator Shelley Short, who got a D, Joel Kretz an F, and Jacqueline Maycumber an F. And Jacqueline is with us tonight, and I really thank you for making the long trip down here to see us. And I also want you to say happy birthday to her husband, whose birthday was on the 11th. And so they're having a night out on Spokane. Woohoo! But there does seem to be a trend here. And, it's with our senators. And I don't know why they have these lousy grades in comparison to our representatives. So we're going to have to figure that whole part out. They're rearranging, but they can do that. So I've got to tell you that I think they, overall represent us so very, very well. And we really appreciate all of you. And I know it was a tough time. It really was. What we've got there are 2 microphones, and I'd love it, I'd love it if you could come up with something fun that happened this session. But every time I come up with that to these guys, they look at me and go, I can't think of a darn thing that was fun, So you have mics there, and let's start with our, there we go. I mean, take charge of this thing. Let's have a good time. Tell us what you really think was,
Turn on, Mike. Push a button.
you push a button.
That
and,
better?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think one of the things that was probably the most unusual, both the 3 other people on the other end of the table were part of it with me, and that was the SEIU bill, that where we were told basically that every home health care worker, and a lot of them are caring for their parents, caring for brothers or sisters, they would be made to join the union, SEIU. So, closer, okay.
Yep, eat the mic, eat the mic.
So,
I do have to explain before you go on. Those are shekels. Those are just extra pay for you guys. Don't bite into them or you'll hurt a tooth. But we figured you needed something extra there.
Okay. So anyway, our speeches started out on the Republican side as fairly impassioned, and they began to shut our mics off if we mentioned union or SEIU in our speech. So when I got up to speak, my first words out of my mouth, well, all of you know I was a member of the teachers union for over 30 years. I got to mention SEIU a couple of times and union whenever I wanted to.
Crazy.
But the thing is, the point that I always knew was that the union had to prove to me that they were providing a meaningful service, and that I always had a voice when I went to union meetings, because I was a union rep for University Elementary and South Pines Elementary. And here I've got a picture of me back in 1995-96 as a first grade teacher with all my students. And I could tell you about those kids and what they're doing today. It's pretty encouraging. But back to the bill, I always had the ability to opt out if I wanted to. And I always felt I was doing more good by lending a conservative voice within the union than just stomping around angry all the time. So that's what I did. And for people not to have a way to opt out of a group that could totally disagree with everything you believe in, number one, and number two, that there was no way to opt out of that. That's not a voice at all. And so from there, our caucus chair, Matt Shea, who's sick, by the way, that's why he's not here tonight. He didn't want to spread his cold to everybody. He said, we need to have caucus. So we left the floor right in the middle of everything. And as I walked away, see, the Democrats didn't quite know what to do, because we had just left the floor. We got into caucus, and we made the decision that we were not going to vote on that at all. And that would be one of the best ways to convey to the world how disgusted we were. So we came back out, and they opened the electronic voting machines to do that, and we just sat there. And I've never heard the Speaker Pro Tem repeat so many times, has everyone cast their votes? He said it about 4 or 5 times and nothing happened. So finally it was 50-0, and that was the first time in state history, as far as I know, there was ever a 50-0 vote in the House of Representatives. And whether that was communicated accurately by our local paper or any of the other ones is beside the point, I think, because we knew that we did the right thing. And we were standing for people that were being railroaded into something where they wouldn't have any choices. So I think that was more sad than anything, but I'm really proud of all the people in our caucus that we took that stand and made sure that everybody knew this is not right. For you to censor us, first of all, and not let us speak our minds on this, that was bad enough. But then to turn off the mic so that we couldn't even be heard. Now, we do have one representative, Jim Walsh, and another one, Mike Volz, down the... They don't really need a microphone. And they just weren't exactly recognizing them during that time, because they knew they didn't need the microphone to be heard. So...
Well, we appreciate your stand that you took on that, and to me it was so sad to see, because the Freedom Foundation had won before, and we were working at advising healthcare workers and the daycare workers and things. You don't have to belong to this union. You can opt out. You can opt out. And then this passed. And so we appreciate the stand. We know that what we have to do is get feet on the ground and get a majority, because then that won't happen again. And I know that you guys will be respectful, and you will not be shutting off microphones and treating them that way, other than it would really be fun.
Yeah. The funny thing is they didn't even look like they were having fun. They just looked guilty. So I think that's that.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
And if you all would use a microphone, that puts you on the video. Sorry.
All right, well, I just wanted to say about that grade, I'm a little worried because I'm going to have to talk to the NRA and see if they want to reduce my A+ grade from them. But any event, one fun thing that happened, actually a couple fun things. I'm going to let Senator Baumgardner talk about his resolution, which was very fun. But at the very end of the session, there was a bill on education that had been negotiated with Representative Taylor in the House and some of our Senate members.
Oh, he's fine.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's fine.
We know what you look like.
Happy to stand. So that bill had been negotiated, and then the Democrats at the end said, well, we don't want to honor the agreement, so we're going to jam the bill through. And we took a caucus. We hadn't seen the bill. We looked at it finally. We had very little time. Our members were trying to speak, and the lieutenant governor is the presiding officer in the Senate, Cyrus Habib. And Cyrus was relatively fair last year when we were in control, but this year completely different, and was very partisan in his rulings. So he was, we had Senator Angel from Port Orchard was trying to speak and be recognized, and he wouldn't recognize her. Everybody was yelling, Mr. President, Mr. President, and he started the roll call. And I don't know, the Irish just got the best of me, so I yelled out twice very loudly, tyrant, tyrant. And that was probably the most fun that we had there. But
well, we know he's blind, but maybe he's deaf too.
Well, yeah, he had some issues, that's for sure. But anyway, let me just say one real positive thing that I think happened. It wasn't perfect, but a huge improvement. Everybody here held tough on not passing the capital budget last year. And we did that because they hadn't fixed the Hearst decision. And that was a terrible decision that overturned decades of water rights law and took property rights away from our citizens. And we were able to get a fairly decent bill, not a perfect bill, through. And I've gotten a number of calls from people that have a little land, want to build a house on it, now can get water, and they couldn't get it before. So that's probably one of the best things we've done. It would not have happened if they didn't need the 60% vote for the bonds for the capital budget. And that was our leverage, and we held through all of last year and the first few months, or the first few weeks of the session this year. So that was probably the high point. After that, it was kind of downhill, a parade of horribles, really. And they said we did not raid the rainy day fund, our state savings account. We did not raid it. All we did was redirect the money that was supposed to go into the rainy day fund to another fund so we could spend it all with just a majority vote rather than the 60% needed under the constitutional amendment to take money out of the savings account. That was one thing. They ignored. The left more and more seems to ignore the rule of law, the Constitution, and the process. The end seems to justify the means for them, and we saw that on a number of items this session. And at the end, one was Initiative 940. There was a great agreement worked out between law enforcement and some of the advocates for, the Initiative 940, which deals with the use of deadly force for law enforcement. and they had an initiative. They gathered all the signatures to the legislature. Constitution says there's 3 things you can do: either enact the initiative, or if you don't do anything, it goes for a vote of the people, or the third choice is to send an alternative. Well, they came up with a plan to try to amend it and not enact it and not send it to a vote of the people. So you might have seen Tim Hyman has filed a lawsuit, and we'll hope that the courts will follow the Constitution and order both the alternative, which was passed and should be enacted. It's far, far superior because it has an objective standard for law enforcement on when they can use deadly force, whereas the initiative has a subjective standard, and then after there's an incident, there'll be a big investigation. And law enforcement, and we've got Representative Holy here, who's been in law enforcement, but they have to make split-second decisions, and they ought to have an objective standard and not be subject to that. So if they both do get on, the alternative is the one we need to be voting for. Let me just end with talk about some of the horrible bills dealing with our fabric of our families in our society. They ignored religious liberty by passing an abortion insurance mandate bill where you're going to be paying for abortions through your insurance premiums. Horrible bill. Hopefully that'll be challenged in court also. They also passed a bill authorizing for the first time in our state paid surrogacy to rent out somebody's womb to have a child with no restrictions on how much can be paid, nothing even like adoption where there'd be a home study or anything like that. At the same time, liberal Europe and other countries around the world are outlawing paid surrogacy, and here we are in this state enacting it. So I could go on about the horrible voting rights bill. I think that also will be challenged. I guess one good thing for this, for our conservative constitutional attorneys in this state, they have great opportunities for challenging a number of bills and getting some additional work. But it was a bad session. Anyway, it was great, though, to have our colleagues in arms here. We really didn't have arms that we could use, but figuratively. And I also want to pay tribute to the House and the spark and the fight that they had. And unfortunately, Matt is not here, but he led a lot of that. And they had 14 amendments, I think, to the paid surrogacy bill. They had a number of bills where every one of them was going to speak. They have a lot of great speakers there, and they took the fight to them, and they actually won one major deal on the a bill that was going to modify the wrongful death law, and I've kind of mixed feelings about it. I did vote against it, but they were able to actually defeat that bill with the help of one Democrat. So they stuck together throughout the session and really should be commended for that. Thanks very much.
And thank you. And I want all of us to commend Senator Patton. The voting scorecard came out, and I want you to know that Senator Patton did not miss one vote this session. Not one. Pretty darn amazing. Jacqueline Maycumber missed one. Matt Shea missed two. And I won't tell you what the others missed, but there were more than that. So, I mean, we have some pretty darn incredible people working for us in Olympia. Thank you.
I'll use this one.
It's
go louder?
fine.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'll yell on this one. I need this to make a point anyway, John. We got a, I'm going to give you a couple of non sequiturs here. You know, the senator nailed it, all the stuff that just, it was a grisly session out there. So I want to go with a lighter note here on this. Two things. You want to talk about somebody that's got an absolute kaboom, totally inconsistent with their size. There's two ends of the spectrum here. One of them is Representative Maycumber. You know, the senator kind of glossed over the fact that she was a cop too. And oh my God, if anybody's ever seen somebody that's mad, that's about this big, it goes beyond the finger in the face, the Catholic mother routine out there, absolutely tearing people up on that. I've sat back in amazement. It's almost fun to watch her. She's so well versed at what she does, and she's so competent at what she does, that when she lights into them, you see people just, they're this, physically they're moving back. And it's just, it's comical to watch. Inconsistent with their size makes a big impression over there. Now on the other end, Bob mentioned Jim Walsh. Now Jim Walsh is a guy that's bigger than Mike Voles. And when he talks, the rest of us, John, Cecil will tell us, and everybody on the floor, hold the mic right up to your mouth so you can hear it. Even when he's talking out there, they tell him, hold the mic down here because his conversational voice is this, and it blows everybody out of the room when he does that. Well, there's a badge of honor in the House, and that's getting gavelled for doing something. You get a point across there, and maybe toss a zinger in there. I tell you what, it's not an art form. It's something that's intentional. If you get gavelled twice in the same speech, that's really a badge of honor. You walk away and people slap you on the back and tell you what a good job you did. Jim Walsh, after the second gavel, they turned his mic off. But his mic was down here, and it didn't matter because he didn't need his microphone, and he kept talking. He got gavelled 7 times. Absolute badge of honor, unprecedented. In the last 30 years, we've had some members there. They're just shaking their heads saying, this guy's gifted. And what he did with the Speaker Pro Tem up there having a gavel is he taunted him over and over again. Well, I think you're wrong, or I think you missed this fine point. With the mic turned off, and everybody could hear him even up in the galleries up top. 7 gavels. So the conclusion of the story is, you had everybody from the Speaker Pro Tem to the chief clerk to the bailiff, everybody ran down off the dais, down to him, and got leadership down there and is saying, you got to sanction him. You got to get him off the floor. He can't be allowed to vote. Everyone looked him straight in the face and says, no, we're not sanctioning him. No, he's not going off the floor. Yeah, he's going to vote, kind of thing. We stood up the majority and all the staff that was hired by the Speaker of the House and pushed him back, and he continued to vote, did a good job. I tell you what, multiple badge of honor. We've got some sound people in the House here. I'm glad to be part of it, and I'm going to turn this over to Jacqueline.
Thank you. It's such a blessing to be here tonight. Thank you so much for having me. It's worth the drive to come down and be with family and friends and see all your faces after being in Olympia so long. I really appreciate it, and it's a humbling honor to represent you. If we get to start off with a little story from the swamp, the Governor's Prayer Breakfast, I'm on the executive board for the Legislative Prayer Breakfast, and I sat with the governor. Over 600 people, 700 people are there, and so it's me, the governor, another legislator, and keynote speaker. And another legislator had negotiated the Public Records Act, and that night he had vetoed it, and so the next morning I'm stuck there with him. And as I'm sitting there, everybody's telling him how great he is. I don't know if anybody sat by the governor for long periods of time, but it's just pretty much people walking up to him telling him how great he is. And I just turned towards him and said, I'm not impressed with you today. Apparently you don't get to say that because it goes dead silent. The keynote speaker flew in from D.C. I am the legislator representing the legislature at this, breakfast, and I'm about to get ready to get up and give the prayer for wisdom in the legislature. And I turned to the governor and said, I'm just not impressed with you today. You didn't give us a lot of warning, you didn't talk to us. And he needed that. I really think he needed a little bit of reality so he could sit and absorb it. The rest of the table went silent, and then I got to get up and give my prayer, which actually was pretty fun. So if you see it on Facebook, that's what's happening right before I went up and gave that prayer. So that's a little note. I'm going to talk about, we talk about the successes we had, and it's just, we really in the minority. So we have a 3-part minority: the House, the Senate, and the governor. It's a struggle, but we had so many wins. Because we're mean, right? I mean, we're just really tough people, and we're fired up. And so a lot of those wins, we talk about vehicles mile travel tax, we talk about carbon tax, we talk about income tax, we talk about capital gains tax. And so I'm the assistant ranking on environment. I'm on healthcare, and the carbon tax was my job to, stop in the House, if it comes up. So we had 4 separate bills. It went to 5, and we had what was called a title only. So they just throw a title regarding the environment, which is blank until the minute they want to bring it up. And we just kept pushing back. And so I want to explain one thing, because you're going to see that this year. So I'm just not going to talk about the swamp. I want to talk about what you're about to see, because we need the fire that we have tonight that we're talking about. We need this to push through till November. So I need you guys to get fired up and think about this, because you need to talk to your friends at the grocery store, you need to talk to everybody at church, and we need to start talking about what's about to be on the ballot. So it's not just a carbon tax, okay? We're not saving the environment. I had beautiful environment bills. I love writing environment bills, but they have nothing to do with revenue, and for some reason they don't pass. So what this bill does specifically, or this initiative, when we talk about clean fuel standards, what it is you're buying a biofuel and you're putting it in your gasoline, okay, to make it burn cleaner. Approximately, if we did a 10% like California has enacted, biofuel standard emissions, that is about 0.02% reduction in carbon. Okay, so almost nothing. However, this product is made with coal. And it can only be made over in Indonesia or China, and it is a carbon, or it's a animal byproduct, or like a corn byproduct. And what they do is they use a high energy carbon process to produce this biofuel. But they don't use point source emission standards to figure out how much carbon is used to produce the product. So they don't produce it here in America. But we send all our waste over there, and then they burn it, and then they ship it across the ocean, on a tanker, I'm sure leaving an oil streak, and then they sell it to us on the open market. And here's the best part. It's sold on the open market with California. So you're bidding on a product that you don't know is available. So that's called market difference, right? So it may be 34 cents, which was back in February, I met with a couple of the oil companies, and they said they're selling it about 34 cents for California, and they're at 3%. Biofuel. So they go to 10%, we have no idea what it is. And we don't know about this supply and demand. These companies could pull back, and then all of a sudden, we're paying approximately $2 a gallon for this product. So we really need to, if you're going to talk about the environment, let's talk about the environment. Let's talk about facts and figures. We talk about carbon tax. The governor's CLUE, which is the Clean Legislative and Executive Work Group, the Carbon Legislative and Executive Work Group, prove that carbon tax does nothing to help the environment. But what it does is it taxes you and me every day, our driving, our heat, getting to the doctor, getting to school, getting to work. So it's every aspect of your life to pull that revenue in. And if you don't think they'll take it, I mean, these are the same people as Senator McCaslin mentioned that pulled $1,000 from those taking care of their developmentally disabled children or their elderly parents and forcing them to pay union dues, $34 million a year. By the way, that goes to elections, but we'll just let that go. And so this is a way to tax another aspect of our lives. So we have to be diligent and explain that this has nothing to do with environment. I would love to work on environment bills, but I work on revenue bills and environment. That's what we do in my committee. We work on revenue. So stay diligent, stay fired up, and have this wave of energy, and we need to continue. This is why I drive down here to be here, because these are the people that are going to make the difference. You're going to talk to your neighbors, you're going to talk to your friends, and these are the fires that we're going to begin to start, because it's not what is sold to you on TV, and as we know, the newspapers, and we're all making friends with the newspapers this year. I don't know if you've noticed. I have 6 in my district, by the way. They love me right now. So what we need to continue to talk and give facts and give the dialogue and not let them control it, right? They've tried to control our party. That didn't work. They tried to control the narrative. That's not working. So we're just going to go ahead and march ahead, and we got some big things happening, but we need to make sure we don't let them control our life, right? Isn't that why we're here tonight? So they don't take that aspect where now, as we learned that GPS tracking system for vehicles mile travels tells you how fast you're going on certain roads. Nobody needs that, by the way. Thank you, Big Brother. I got that. And Yeah, right, exactly. So we need to fight for that little bit of freedom that we can still hold. So then when we talk to our children, and I have 3, that I can say, remember when you still have that freedom. So we're starting every day, right? We're starting with guns. We're starting with taxes. We're starting with our freedoms. So continue the good fight. Thank you so much in allowing me to fight for you in Olympia. I do enjoy it, as Senator Holy mentioned. I'm probably really mean, but I enjoy every second of it. Thank you so much for having me.
Okay, so you know the best part about being in Olympia is hitting about Cleellum on the way out of town. And I never thought I'd say I'm thrilled to see Cleellum, but when I drove home on Saturday evening with my truck loaded up with all of my Olympia possessions, and I'm about Cleellum, I know I'm close to the normal side of the state, and so that's the best part about it. So I do have a little story about Jackie Maycumber. This actually happened not this year but last year. So you have to imagine the dais with the big board back there, and Jackie is in a straight line between the dais, me, and Joel Kretz, who sits way in the back. When he sits there, is that fair to say? He's a busy man in leadership, so we'll put it that way. Anyway, Joel evidently did something wrong on a vote. And you guys see, like, Lord of the Rings, the Eye of Sauron, right? Or War of the Worlds, the pods with the death meme. So Jackie's doing, what's the Exorcist, the head swiveling around. And guess who's right in the line of fire? Right, me, poor me, sitting there minding my own business. I'm sitting next to Matt Shea. Jackie's like doing this. I'm like, me? I look to Matt Shea. He's running crying into the caucus room. He's so terrified. So I'm like freaking out. Here's Jackie. I think I did, like she's going to come unglued and come beat the tar out of me. So eventually I figured it out. We had a break. I said, what did I do? It wasn't you, it was Joel. So I said, thank God. Because you get the cop, the angry mom, the ticked off wife rolled up into one package and sent my way. That's the kind of fun and passion she brings. So let's see, what can we talk about? Let's rent a womb. We tried to say, hey, maybe you should be a citizen, right? And maybe you should have mental capacity. I think that was one of the amendments, at least we talked about. And then let's put this in context. We're talking Seattle, the #1 sex trade city, and this taking all joking aside, #1 sex trade city in the United States. Spokane, I think, is #5, and now we're going to be exporting these women in. So some rich couple in Seattle and Bellevue can rent a womb and have a baby. So think about that on the moral side of that. And it's really, as Senator Patton, I think, talked about, completely unrestricted. There's no conscience. I can't remember how many amendments we tried to hang on that one, but that was a horrible bill. The abortion rights, mandating abortion coverage, absurd. And they actually, made some ridiculous speeches, like they don't like telling what the business do on earlier bills that day, and we're like, wait a minute, did you just say that? So that's a horrible bill. The carbon tax, and you think about it, how many times you hear Democrats whine about our tax system is so regressive. Our tax system's so regressive. Put a tax on carbon, and who's that going to hit the worst? Low-income working families, people the worst, because Bill Gates can afford it, right? We maybe can afford it, most of us in this room. But if you're living on the bubble there, and everything, every piece of food, every medicine, everything is going to cost you more. Everything, when you put those kind of taxes and regulations on it. Anybody ever hear of a marbled murrelet? Right? Marbled murrelet. It's some bird over on the peninsula. Yeah, and my first question was, can you hunt it and eat it? And evidently they're called mud ducks, I guess, so they're not very tasty. So that's going to be the next spotted owl after, what do we fight the spotted owl in the timber industry for 30 years and decimated it in Washington State? And then they said, oops, our bad, this is the next one that's served up, the marble murrelet. So hopefully you don't hear about it, but my guess is you will hear about the marble murrelet. So what else do we got going on in Olympia? I think they covered most everything.
forward, but we probably are going to look at them next year unless we change things.
Oh yeah, the gun laws aren't going to go away anytime soon. Thankfully, there's some members in the House on the Democrat side that are pretty strong on gun bills, so they vote with us on a lot of those issues that help kill them. But they want to ban everything from banning everything to giving municipalities control over gun regulation, so Seattle could pass their own laws. So there's a number of issues on guns, and I can't even remember all the bills that do that. Oh, one we killed I'm on the Ed Committee. We killed this one in education. I served with Bob McCaslin on that. Was the transgender bathrooms in the transgender school that didn't even get out of committee. Because again, even though we're in the minority, all of us Republicans just locked up tight on it and told our ranking member, said, I got no votes for you, have a nice day, run it off and run over us if you want, but we ain't voting for it. And so that stopped the bill in Ed Committee. It didn't even come out to go to the floor. So I think that's about all I have, and I think we're doing questions too as soon as the good senator from the 6th gets a chance to speak. All right. Thanks, Mike.
Well, thanks everybody. I was coming over here this evening, and I just want to start by saying thank you, how much I appreciate what you guys do here, putting this event on, and all of you in this room, in addition to the great conservative warriors you have serving you Olympia. But, it's been a long session. I'm going to make a few comments about how it was a session of some sorrow, some joy, and some pride for me and my family. But as you know, we have 4 very little children at my house, and my standard stump speech joke is there's no better preparation for Olympia than having 4 kids having been in diapers at the same time. That's the best training you get for Olympia. They're not all in diapers anymore, but they're still, all 4 are very, very small, and so it's a little hectic around the house, and my wife wasn't super excited about me coming out to a political event tonight, but it is that time of year. But then I told her what group I was coming to see, and she said, oh, yeah, you got to go to that one, so she realizes how important you guys are. And first thing I just wanted to mention is I love these coins. So I get home from Olympia, and my little 6-year-old kindergartner is really excited. Conrad's really excited, and Eleanor tours me, and he's got this stacked up green box on the kitchen counter when I come home. And he says, Daddy, come look. I've made a leprechaun trap. And apparently I've been talking about leprechauns at school, and he thinks leprechauns are real. And so he's got a leprechaun trap. And it's a stacked up green box with a staircase, and there's a little gold coin outside of it, like this, with an arrow saying in here, and then there's a trap door and a false floor. And so he wants the leprechaun to go up these stairs, go through the false door, follow all the money, and then fall for the false floor. And of course, I looked at this. I said, Conrad, you don't have a leprechaun trap. You have a Democrat trap. That's what you have. And so we just need to get a bigger one of these, put it right on the state capitol, and we'll solve this thing, right away. But it was, I talked about sorrow and joy and pride in this. We did have, so many of you have been good supporters to my families. I got involved in this race 10 years ago, and you've been with us for a long time. We had a tough family thing happen this year. My wife had a pregnancy not go right in the 20th week of her pregnancy, which was just really, really tough. And so was home from that. But very blessed how we were treated through that process with many of you, and we were just very, very grateful to that. I've been in the legislature for 8 years, and we've effectively been in the majority for 6 of them. So this was the first year in a while where we have not controlled the Senate. So last year, I was the chair of Commerce and Labor, and I had the first hearing on a bill I had sponsored to make Washington State a right-to-work state, something that I think needs to happen. And 3,000... The union guys brought in 3,000 people and tried to shut down the Capitol just for having a hearing, just for having the conversation. And this year we lose one election. I'm in the minority, and they're running out this fake SEIU union bill so they can get $26 million of money that shouldn't, they should get a stipend. They shouldn't be union members, but $26 million of public money that goes straight out of the pockets of people taking care of their developmentally disabled kids and goes straight into Democratic Party coffers to keep elections, to keep the system going. Okay, so that's the difference of what, one vote can be, whether you're having a right to work hearing or you were having an SEIU bill get just jammed through. And you're absolutely right, the Democrats were just up there guilty, because behind the scenes, they would be like, wow. And one of them told me, a Seattle Democrat that I'm friends with, he said, sometimes we just got to do things so we can do other things. So they know how bad some of these bills were that they were doing. But, the pride and the joy that we took, because we have been so good at killing stuff for the last 5 years, we actually got to be involved in some fights that while some of them we won and some we lost, but I really, really enjoyed the fight. And so being on the Senate floor and fighting for life with a guy like Mike Padden was absolutely an honor for me. And there are people in the state as conservative as Mike Padden. There is nobody in the state more conservative than Mike Padden, I guarantee you. So whether it was fighting for this horrible abortion mandate, and all I said is, I understand there are some people that believe that that little guy is not a baby. I don't know if you've seen a 3D ultrasound lately or looked at one. I have, and I just know people have different opinions. But the idea that you would force those of us who believe it's a baby to pay for abortions, not make it legal, but pay for abortions, I think that's just an abhorrent bill. It's really the worst bill that I have seen. And to be up there fighting against bump stocks like everybody up here did and all these things on our Second Amendment rights, it was sorry that we saw those things pass, but I think a lot of pride in the fact that we fought them so hard and did enjoy that. You asked for a funny story. So since I've been in legislature for 8 years, sometimes I've written bills in such a way to get attention to the bills or attention to an issue. So when the Supreme Court, unconstitutionally in my view, held us contempt for McCleary, there's 9 Supreme Court members. There are actually 5 when the state was founded. So I wrote a bill that they would have to meet at noon on January 1st and draw straws and go back to the 5, and we would save more, because we don't need 9 of them, we just need an odd number. So, and I had another bill when they held us in contempt. I reversed the bill and held them in contempt. I once had a bill that because I think, and all these things I think are great ideas. They're not fake bills for the same, but I had a bill once that would turn. Evergreen has a lot of problems. There's a lot of goofy stuff going on at Evergreen University. So I had a bill to turn Evergreen into George W. Bush Military Academy, and so we had this. Well, this year, Governor Inslee is one of the least competent, lowest integrity public servants I've ever met. And I have met really Democrats that I disagree with, but who I respect. Inslee's not one of those people. He's a backbencher from Congress that couldn't do anything in D.C., got in here when no other Democrat wanted to run because everybody thought Rob McKenna was going to win because 2012 was to be a good year. And he got there. And just think about this. For 6 years, he's in his 6th year, and his most passionate thing, the only thing that he cares about, is trying to bring a carbon tax to this state. That's the only thing. And it's a nonsense policy that makes no sense with a state that has much clean electricity as we do with hydropower and all these things. And for 6 years, he has failed. For 6 years, we have beat him on that, and we beat him again this year, in part because of this great team we have behind us. But just think about that. Inslee can't even get his passion project out of the legislature that is that issue. But in any event, this year, Governor Inslee colluded with Democrat leadership to create a public transparency bill. The press then did not do a fair job reporting on that bill, and a lot of people took a vote on that issue. And it's a more complicated issue than you think. But Inslee was in on its creation, and then the press went to him secretly with the publishers and negotiated a veto with him, even though he had promised not to veto it to the Democrat leadership. He'd been on national TV and lied about it. He actually said on MSNBC, I can't veto this because it's veto proof. Meanwhile, by the way, I had a B&O tax cut bill last year that was all agreed to as part of the budget to give every manufacturer in the state the same rate that Boeing gets, because if it's good for Goliath, it ought to be good for David. And he vetoed that after the fact, and he lied and double-crossed us, vetoed that after the fact because he got heat from his far-left flank. Well, this year, he, shame on me, fool me once, shame me twice. Well, I didn't go along with the deal this year, but Inslee then lied and vetoed this bill after he got a lot of heat. And so you had a lot of legislators who've gone over the cliff, were getting treated unfairly on this issue because Inslee had made a promise and not fulfilled his promise, which is the one thing you're not supposed to do in politics. If you give your word on something, you're supposed to keep it. That's the only currency you really have in politics. And so it was no surprise to me. So this year, we asked about something fun. One of my bills that got a lot of I think, a warm reception from both Republicans and Democrats, to be quite honest, was I introduced a bill, a joint resolution between the Senate and the House, so it showed up on both systems, to name April 1st Governor Jay Inslee Integrity Day. And so, and I will tell you that very senior members, very senior Democrats in Olympia hugged me for introducing that bill, okay? So the thing was a little raw over there. I am going to be, if we do the question answer, I actually have a story about border walls and guns, and then also a story about border walls and guns at the same time, if you want to hear that. But I won't take any more time. I am leaving the Senate this year. Jeff Holy is going to replace me in the state Senate. He'll be a big improvement. He'll be a tremendous state senator. With all of your help, these races, it's going to be a tough year, so we got to work hard. And then you do really have a good team behind you. I'm going to be running for a local position of treasurer. Rob Chase had taken a two-term pledge, and unlike some folks, when he said the two-term pledge, he meant it, which speaks to his integrity. And so Rob's going to be doing something different there and moving on, but it will be nice to be home. And the joke I've been making that I'll end on is there was a lot of discussion about disclosure this year and knowing what legislators are up to. And I wish it could be disclosed how many hot dogs I've eaten at Love's gas station in Ellensburg over the last 8 years, because the amount of times that I've drove Snoqualmie Pass, to fight for you guys. But you guys are worth fighting for, and more importantly, your kids and our grandkids are worth fighting for. And it's been a real honor to have been your state senator. Thank you.
Okay, I have two people running mics for questions. I hope you have some great questions for these guys besides thanks and appreciation. So Julian has a mic, Jeff has a mic, and who has a question? None of you? Martin?
Yeah, has Governor Inslee signed that one bill that has us paying for abortions and the like? It hasn't been signed yet as far as I know. Has he?
Yes.
Well, maybe you can all call in and say, no, don't sign it. It may make a difference.
I don't think he signed it yet.
Yeah, a lot of them are on his desk, but they've gone through everything. So do you have any indication or inclination as to why in the hell he wouldn't sign it? I don't think he has any morals. Anybody else? Come on, guys, questions. Very seldom do we get these guys out here and helping us out. So help out, swallow your food.
Several years ago, the SEIU donated about $900,000 to this failed state income tax initiative. How is it that they are so rich and yet they don't have to pay taxes? How is it that these public sector unions that can fund all these socialist Democrats campaigns and socialist issues, socialist initiatives, how is it that they are so loaded and yet they have nonprofit status?
It's how the system works.
Well, let me answer it with a solution rather than an explanation. It's been 20 years since we've had the House, the Senate, and the governor's office. Give us that again, we might solve that problem for you.
You know, guys, what Jeff's talking about is one of the reasons that we have spent the last month really talking about unity. We don't want any of our Republican electeds being challenged. We want them to be free, to be able to be across the state, to be working in areas and districts and things where we have a chance of winning. Let's flip some of these Democrats over to Republicans. Let's get a majority. We've got to get a majority. You can't change any of this if you don't get a majority, and that means you get on your feet and you vote, you get on your feet and you talk to people, and you make sure that these guys are free to be able to go all through the state to really assist and help their counterparts in the other part of the state. It's pretty safe living over here on the east side. I don't think I'd want to live in the west side.
You know, Cecily, I want to follow up on that. That's exactly right. And I wish Matt Shea was here, because Matt's a walking library on facts and figures having to do with local voting, state voting, and the percentage difference it takes. This isn't about any sort of a partisan difference. This isn't a difference of opinion, a philosophical difference. This is simply about get out the vote. That's the whole game these days.
That's right.
Even in as strong of outside of the 3rd district, we should be absolutely just monumentally strong here in all the surrounding areas. this side of the Mississippi, this side of the Columbia River, I swear, the divide's the same sometimes.
Cascades,
the cultural
Cascades.
divide. The Cascades, there you go. But it's one of those things that we just have people don't turn out. And sometimes because of that, because of the absolute rabid, Saul Alinsky kind of an attitude they have where everybody gets so wrapped around the axle, you put a pin in the middle of downtown Seattle and run about a 75-mile radius around there, and they can actually control a vote, an election, a cycle, statewide electeds, this kind of thing, because they turn out in such great numbers. If we did the same thing over here, we could take those back. And I'm not talking, it's not pie in the sky. We're talking about a 5 or 6% difference in turnout rates here.
That's right.
We could absolutely control things.
Right. Rusty.
My name is Rusty, and I appreciate you guys coming tonight. It's been good to listen to you. But I also enjoy the emails that I get, giving me information on what is happening. And something that I would like to see you add to that is when you have a significant bill that needs input, telephone calls, emails, and stuff like that, let us know so that I can send it to my friends, and the other people that receive your information can send it also. We may be a silent majority, but we are conservative and we are concerned. And so when we can, we would love to support you even more intensely than what we do now. And on the back table, I have something on Sunday night shooting that we do at Sharpshooters. Grab a flyer and take it with you, and we'd love to see you this Sunday on the 18th. Thank you.
I just want to add there that the best example of that I've seen in all my years of the legislature was this year on protecting the Second Amendment. And the number, I would say every legislator got 2,000 maybe emails from people, and a lot of them from people in their district against the gun bills, and that was really what made the difference. I mean, they were very close in the Senate to bringing that up, but there were so many contacts from people, and some were emails, some were calling their offices. So I want to thank everybody for all their work on that. But to follow up a little bit what Jeff said, just last night it appears that the Republican lost the congressional race in Pennsylvania. I saw some statistics where the Republican conservative turnout was about 57% and the Democrat turnout was 70%. So we have to turn that around, and you know, if you want a little motivation, look at Venezuela. That's where we're going to be headed to if we don't take control. And you know, the old story of the frog in the boiling water, and that's what we have going in this state. And this is a liberal left-wing laboratory of a state, and all these crazy things coming on here. So we can do it. And even in the 3rd district, I mean, the people in the 3rd district are not represented. They're far more conservative than the 3 members that represent
When
them.
he turned it on, it was buzzing. Let's send down the other one.
I can't remember what I was going to say anymore.
Well, it was important.
Was it important?
Come along. It was important.
What was he talking about? Voter turnout? Yeah.
Voter turnout.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Talk about that more.
I'll say something.
Now, you've just had an example of fleeting mind.
Well, hey, sit next to Matt Shea for 12 hours at a time, and you'll be drained too. Just kidding.
Say it in the mic. What I want to touch really fast is the emails. So our email servers are controlled by the state of Washington and by our staff. And in certain points of the year, you can only send out certain emails. So no matter what's happening, you cannot send out a blast email to your server and say, care about this bill, because we are restricted. So what we do is we use social media to get out. And so we have either personal Facebooks, Twitter accounts, and that's how we get some information out. Or this Facebook account is a good one, because the actual email accounts that come from Gov Delivery or we're transferring to a new system are actually controlled by the state of Washington and paid for through the state. So that's why you'll get frustrated, like, why didn't they tell me? Well, staff can only send out a couple a year. So that's what we're restricted on.
Well, and can you tell me, do our emails make a difference?
Oh, absolutely. So I'll give you a quick description when we talk about losing liberty really fast. So in environment, there was legislation that would say anytime near a certain United States military base that the local government had to use military operations and part of their planning process. So, other legislators like, oh, it's no big deal, until Representative David Taylor, who was instrumental in Hearst and clearing the budget, and I said, whoa, wait a minute. Ferry County, all of it is an aerial testing for the new growlers through the military system, and that would define that the local government of the whole county would have to go in and talk to the military about planning, including allowing zoning for homes. So you say, well, wait a minute, how does that have to do with it? If you wanted to sell your home or subdivide it and build another home or develop, and we talk about affordable housing all day long on the House floor, they could control, the U.S. military, a whole nother fraction of government, can control whether you are able to subdivide that property or sell it. So
Whoa.
that is huge. And at this point, when the bill came up, it was no big deal. They had a hearing, it was no big deal. And all of a sudden, emails started pouring in. Huge amount of emails that said, you don't get to touch our land, you don't get to touch our property, and you don't get to touch our process of local government planning. And that was an environment, and that stopped the bill. They didn't even want to go through an executive session. They didn't want to go through a vote. They didn't want to bring it up on the House floor. So that is those little moments where you can make such a big difference, because you talk to your neighbor and you spark the next person, you spark the next person. That was a bill that seemed very small and not a big deal. That was huge. It was huge for our rights.
Another one that's a little bit bigger is when we locked up on that SEIU bill, every one of us had an email in front of us from an in-home independent care provider that we were going to read off the floor to them, and that's when they started shutting us down, is when we started quoting our own constituents. So every one of us, all 48 of us, are ready to launch on that before they shut us down. So it does matter, and we get, the thousands of emails on gun rights, on abortion rights, and honestly, the way things that they were ramming through, by the time we would see it on a run list and got an email put together, they're probably already voting it out. They crammed it through so quick.
Michael has something to say there.
On this same topic. So there's probably, I would say at a minimum for everybody in this room, 5 groups that you need to be on their email list, okay? So you need to be on Freedom Foundation's email list, okay? You need to be on Family Policy Institute's email list on what they have going on. You need to be on Washington Policy Center's email list. You need to be on one of the NRA lists. And the 5th list that I just had in my head that I have now forgotten will come back to me. And this one, of course, we're already all here. But in any event, so there's just some, think about the key people that are, CAPER. You need to be on CAPER's list, property rights. That's a really important group. And so if you're on those email lists, even if you're not getting it from us, you're going to get pinged on the stuff that's important. And then here's the key. Everybody in here agree. We want to hear from you, but we agree with you. Okay, so out here, the people you really need to be sending the messages to make sure your voice heard are our 3rd district representatives, to make sure that, because sometimes they get led by the nose by Seattle, on stuff. So they need to hear, and then sometimes, and then our city council folks here as well too. And even if the city council people aren't voting on it, let them hear your voice, on those things. And I had one of my good friends, different political views than me, but he's a real leader for the Democrats. He's a downtown Seattle guy, leader for the Democrats in some of these Second Amendment issues. And I was talking to him while this was going on. We're fighting him, but he's telling me, he's like, I cannot believe how many emails I'm getting. So they make a difference. They really, really do. So think about those 5 groups that I mentioned and get on their stuff. And then when you see stuff from them, send it out to your buddies and force multiply.
Super. Thank you. Gary?
Yes. I'm not young anymore, so I don't worry about stepping on some toes.
Get the mic closer so they'll hear it.
What's that?
That's good.
Okay. There's some comments tonight talking about Venezuela. Don't look at Venezuela. Look at Calizuela. No, it's no longer Mexifornia. It's Calizuela. They're going down so fast. I'm concerned that if we don't learn from Calizuela, we're going to be the next Calizuela because of Inslee. Speaking of Inslee, and also political action committees, CPAC where I've been to a number of their meetings, has gone down the tubes this year because they have really done damage and have turned out the pro-life, the family organizations. They were not allowed at their meetings. I know of several. So PACs have lost my attention. Speaking of PACs, I do not support the PAC here in Spokane GOP, especially when you have a leader that promoted supporting allowing Al French to send our decision for a commissioner to Governor Inslee, who you well represented him here tonight. So I've got a new way of doing PACs. Previously, I've given money to Matt Shea and said, divide this up where you think it should go to get the legislature back. I told Matt Shea I'm doubling that this year. That's my PAC. So you might consider getting someone, give your money directly to those you trust.
Well, that's what we've always promoted here, is do not give money to the party, give money to support the candidates that you support. Because that way you know that the money will be used for the purposes
So
that you're
those are just a
contributing
few
for.
thoughts.
So
One also involves, we were not trusted to vote by the county on something that involved the broad base of PCOs on giving input and involvement to changing our platform, and we've not had an opportunity to work on it again. It's just been dismissed. We don't even have it on the list of committees to look at. Well, you did have an opportunity to vote to strengthen the platform involving illegal immigration. Fortunately, we had Trump to make up for the stupidity of what happened there. We need to look at that again. And there are other issues too on the platform. For example, there was an issue involving children and using public restrooms that was to be voted on by the platform vote at the last county convention. Well, we're not going to have that even going into next year. So we need to shorten the chain on the county GOP. The issue of that, when you have someone that's controlling the meeting place, and the fact that it would have cost us $3,000 an hour to lengthen the last
convention.
County convention. The problem there is that the person that was heading that had a kind of a favorable reaction to the Log Cabin Club. And so if the Log Cabin Club is getting more and more influence on there, and we can't even vote to keep boys out of the girls' bathrooms at public schools on the platform, we have a problem. Thank you for listening.
So one bill that I just wanted to, that's going to impact everybody in here that we passed legislature this year, I just wanted to explain it, because it's okay to disagree with the bill. Good people, good conservatives can disagree with bills, but I want to give the reason why we supported it in a pretty countywide legislative district fashion, although not everybody. So this year, the legislature passed a bill to go from 3 county commissioners in Spokane to 5 county commissioners in Spokane. And some of you are saying, well, why did you do this? Okay, so the Democrats, what they really did this year is, once they finally took control of Olympia and had all 3 chambers, they passed a lot of bills to tilt future elections towards them. Okay, things like the so-called Voters' Rights Act, which allows them to get left-wing judges and lawsuits to set up lines and redistrict in their favor. They did same-day registration, which all of us are saying, you guys are worried about Russian bots and this kind of stuff. Think about how we feel about not being able to trust elections after Dino Rossi and Christine Gregoire on that stuff, and now you're going to do same-day registration. So they've got the muscle right now to get what they want. So as you know, in Spokane County, right now, there's 3 county commissioners. In the primary, they run by district, and then the general they run countywide. Well, we have ended up with all Republicans electing that. The Democrats don't like that. And they were going to use their muscle, either directly or through this Voters' Rights Act, to redraw the lines. So they were going to do 3 commissioners by district, so not countywide. They would have controlled the redistricting process, and they would have ended up with a Democrat, at least one Democrat commissioner, if not 2, and how they would have drawn the lines. So we negotiated a deal to go to 5 by district. And the process that will be used is the same process for legislative redistricting. So there's 2 Democrats, 2 Republicans, and it would go into effect in 2021. Now, some people have said this is a scheme because legislators want to be county commissioners. I don't think that's true. I think it was really us making sausage and I think doing a pretty good bill to keep our county respecting property rights, being pro-growth, and not turning into Spokane City Council. So that's what we were doing on the bill. Again, it'll take place in 2021. I think it's going to avoid some lawsuits with the county because only having 3 county commissioners, anytime 2 of them are together, it has an impact on liability for public records and some of these things. So you don't have to agree with the bill. It's perfectly fine to think it was better the way it was before, but the reason we did it, I wanted you to hear because while not all of us voted the exact same way on the bill, I think everybody that was up here has had input on the bill. So in 2021, the lines will be redrawn. 2022, there will be 5 county commissioners, and hopefully there's some people that may write in for, maybe some of you guys will be on running for that county commission position someday. So I just wanted to clarify that bill for you. If you have any questions about that bill, just contact one of us and we can walk you through it because there is a little bit of misinformation out there about that bill. But again, you don't have to like it, but I just want you to know the reason we did it.
Thank you. Ruth. Okay. When you were talking about getting out the vote, that's one aspect, of course, of changing the results of elections. And you folks, you all know me, and so I'm going to speak about one of the other aspects. And Matt Shea, this session, did try to amend a Democrat-sponsored election security enhancement bill. And this is the way I saw it happen, is that he convinced everyone in the House to vote for his amendments. When it got to the Senate, I saw something happen that I've never seen before. The committee said to committee staff, after testimony from the Secretary of State's office and from the Auditors Association, the committee chair said to staff, go back and rewrite the bill and eliminate everything that Matt Shea put in. Okay? So I thought that probably a done deal. Okay, because I've never seen a committee staff having to rewrite without a sponsor. So it went back to the House for, what do they call it, concurrence or something, and the House did something I've never seen before either. They didn't concur. They said, all of them said, you're not going to do that. Well, the Senate did water it down. But what we need, besides turnout, is the ability to audit the elections process so that we can verify that it's done as we vote. In the Gregoire Dino Rossi election, after those of us who got done with our research, we found out that our esteemed auditor's project was to lose votes. We lost enough votes in Spokane County. Votes that were still in the tabulators, votes that were still in envelopes, votes that got left because the voter's signature didn't quite match and they didn't notify the voter till after it was too late. So there are some processes that need verified so that our voting strength actually is our voting strength. So we have to have turnout, but then we've got to make sure they're counted right. And we need process to do that. Matt did try, but it got so watered down it's pretty ineffective. We'll try again. Thank you, Ruth. Did you have another question? Dalton.
This is not so much a question as a thank you. Now, Jeff, with the exception of you, everyone up there either has a first name or last name that starts with an M. You're the anomaly. okay? But you're welcome anyway. Now, I'm a 4th District guy. My family settled the Valley back in the 1880s. I think I have a few roots, okay? You guys are the best there are. We love what you do. Mike, I get your emails all the time. I love hearing from you. But there's a couple of things I need to bring up. One, Cecily gave you a lot of these coins. I don't want you to think they're worth anything. These are Obama bucks. They're not worth a damn thing, okay?
But Michael would like your extras, so he could take them to Connor.
Oh, okay. You got somebody that'll believe in it, right? Okay. The other thing is, if I could get you guys to all push Inslee to run in 2020, life would be good. He's going to get his butt kicked by
who?
Our current president. Oh, what's his name? Oh, Trump. That's it. CNN never says his name correctly, or they put something in front of it. But he would do two things. He'd get his butt kicked and we'd get him out of our government.
But Dalton, my question is who do we have in the Republican Party to run an effective campaign against the Democrats? Give me a name.
That's a good question. I'd like to be able to give you an answer other than Alfred E. Newman or somebody like that in the near future. But
that's what we have to work on.
Inslee's killing us. You know, there's a little story out, and you've all heard it, I'm sure. You can see Olympia from the, what the hell is it called in Seattle, the tower thing?
The Space Needle?
Space Needle, there we go. It's too many years in Spokane, right? You can see Olympia from the Space Needle. That needs to change. You need to be able to see Olympia from Spokane. Or Ellensburg, or just about any other town in the state of Washington other than Snohomish County or King County. And maybe if we can get Inslee to run for president, who knows what could happen. The worst thing that could happen is we couldn't get rid of him. So put that in your thoughts. My wife said if she wasn't around, I could love you. What you're doing for the carbon tax is fantastic. We have a horse ranch. I feed 25 pounds of hay to a horse a day. He makes 75 pounds of manure. It's like a perpetual machine, you know.
That's right. If you were in California, you'd be paying for that.
I know. Yeah, down there they put all the fertilizer in little green boxes, and then the garbage guy picks it up, and they pay big bucks to get rid of it. But everybody in this room loves you guys. You guys are doing a great job. You're supporting us, and we appreciate what you do. I know you don't always hear it on the other side of the mountain, but we're here for you. We got your back.
And just let us know what we can do to support you, because I think everybody would. We just need to know. I know a couple of years ago I heard what people say, well, I don't need to send Matt Shea an email on that gun law because I know how he's going to vote. No, he needs to have the emails to show the stacks, and all of you do. You need to have that support to back up what you're saying.
I want to thank you for the thanks, and when we talk about great revolutions that have occurred, and recently in the American Revolution to our last president, where people just wake up and something occurs that's brilliant and exciting. I mean, this could be Washington State's 2018 revolution. And when, you know, I discussed it before, but, you know, when they were standing on the edge of the Boston Harbor, our patriots that took that initial step to dump that tea in the harbor, that started what we call this great nation, they had to do it with financial, spiritual, and political support for their family. They could not have done it. They could not have stood on that edge of that Boston Harbor and decided to dump enough, you know, tea to equal, you know, half our GDP right now without support, knowing that their family was taken care of and that there's people behind them. And so we need those prayers from you. We need the financial, and we need the spiritual, and we need that political push, because it's hard. It's a hard fight. And, you know, I'm thankful that my husband's here tonight, and we, you know, I was almost roasted this evening. I appreciate it, but, you know, I'm I am a tough woman, but I also got a 6'4", Scotch-Irish rancher behind me. So, that makes you a little tougher, right? So I just want to thank you all and thank you for the thanks. But we continuously, those prayers really do make a difference in our lives, and those kind notes on Facebook and to continue to battle at home, that helps us battle in Olympia.
I think we have another question up here, Mike.
Yes, I was wondering, I really don't need her.
You're good.
Was there any legislation regarding vaccines, natural health, nothing like that, and nothing? How about the health?
So is anybody else on healthcare? Am I the only one on
healthcare laws?
I am on the healthcare committee. We didn't have anything
So
even
there's
come up.
No attack in that end.
No, nothing.
Okay.
Okay, anybody else? We have somebody back here.
So there was some bills that were introduced by Representative Shea. Can you explain to us why those didn't go anywhere, or would you consider next session signing on to those?
So I did see his bills. They were dropped after hearing dates from what I know. And the chair, Representative...
On January 17th was their drop date.
Oh, well, I am not the chair of the committee. And so what the chair does is she brings up what bills can be brought forth. And so there was nothing even brought forth. And I actually had quite a few bills that were, something that I thought would be really important that, had bipartisan support that chairs of committees wouldn't even hear.
What did the bills do?
They were for informed consent. A little closer. Okay, they were informed consent bills on vaccinations and trying to keep regulations with federal guidelines to the state, because right now the state, some of the ingredients do not match federal guidelines. I don't have the list in front of me, but there was 4 or 5 of them that were mostly just to support parental rights, and informed consent is what we're asking for. So.
I believe I did co-sponsor one of Matt's bills dealing with parental rights. Quite frankly, the answer to everything, all the questions like this, irregardless of the subject matter, has to do with actually getting a majority so we actually have the Speaker of the House. The Speaker of the House appoints the committee chairs, and each individual committee chair is a tap. They turn on what they want to get playtime, they turn off what they don't want to get playtime, and they're told by leadership pretty much what their bandwidth is on that committee. We don't have the authority. We are absolutely, sometimes we're presented with Hobson's choice. A lot of times we're presented with nothing more than dead airspace out there. If you want to see something that's a representation of exactly what I'm talking about this session, now that they run the table again, both houses and the governor's office, look at the ratio of bills that were finally voted on the floor, Democrat to Republican bills. Usually it's like 30, 70, 45, somewhere in there we'll get playtime, a third or touch more. We're probably 15% this time, absolutely shut out on this. It's a game of who controls the table. They do, and that's the answer is allow us to control the table again, and we'll make those changes.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Up front here. Jeff? Okay. And then go to Pat.
Oh, hi.
Gretchen?
A couple of comments, or one comment and one question. My comment is just that I'm a historian for the county party, which means nothing really, but I put stuff on the Dropbox. But I do want to say that if you want to come down, the meetings are the first Tuesday of every month at 6:30. It's always good to check the GOP.com, SpokaneGOP.com, to make sure. Occasionally, like on election night or something, we've changed it, but always look at that. So you're welcome just to come down and sit. There's chairs. You don't sit at the table where people are voting, but those of us that are not voting, we sit along some chairs. So come down and see what's going on. But my question is, I am really upset with the surrogacy bill, and especially with absolutely no guidelines or anything to protect. I can just see women, especially uneducated women or women that have been trafficked here, being, given money to, or I don't know where the money will go, probably wouldn't go to the women, but ending up being an incubator for a baby. So my question is, what did the Democrats say? I mean, why did they go along with this? Because I am going to be talking to them. I have to say, Andy Billig, is I'm not in his district, but he always responds to my letters. So I suggest you send him an email. But what did they say about that? How could they go along with this? I would think this should be a bipartisan no.
Gretchen, I read that the Republicans offered over 50 amendments to that, and every amendment was discarded, not adopted. I mean, they fought hard.
Because they're immoral.
So, well, I'll tell you the conversations I had with him. But first, let me say, so I had the opportunity this past fall. Me and my entire family spent the fall in France, where I was teaching a class on counterinsurgency at a university over there. Part-time legislature, you can do some different things. France is not a particularly conservative place. And in France and in the European Union, they have passed laws restricting paid surrogacy because they fear about the exploitation of women and the commoditization of a baby that happens in paid surrogacy that we are all concerned about. Same concerns you have, Gretchen, and the idea of what is the dividing line between selling a child in trafficking and just the real gray morass area that comes out. So how did this bill come up? Well, in 2011, when I first got to Olympia, this bill was on the agenda. And at that time, there was a lone Democrat in the House named Mark Miloscia, who was one of the last of the Blue Dog Democrats, so a socially conservative, fiscally liberal Democrat, very pro-life, very Catholic, and very sincere. And I remember Mark, I'd never heard of Mark Miloscia before, and I very rarely watch the House debates because sometimes when you're in the Senate, you get busy being in the Senate, and sometimes the joke for the House members is I call them the buttons because they vote by buttons and we give them a hard time, but that's really not the point. That's supposed to be a courtesy laugh there. Anyway, the point is, so I saw Mark Miloscia in 2011, Gretchen, and he was crying on the floor, fighting this bill harder than I've ever seen any legislator fight a bill on this bill. And actually, they stopped it once, and then it got out of the House, and then it came to the Senate, and because 2011, the Democrats were relying on us for a budget deal, we didn't allow the bill to pass. So Republicans said no in the Senate because we were close enough. Well, since that time, Mark Miloscia essentially got kicked out of the Democratic Party because he's pro-life. And he became a Republican, still has the exact same views, is a very high integrity guy. You know, I pull my hair out with Mark on like union and some fiscal issues sometimes, but he's as high integrity as he can on life issues. And we had a big Republican tent, and we brought him in because it gave us the gavel. Mike Patton and I would not have been committee chairs for 5 years if the Democrats hadn't kicked pro-life Mark Miloscia out of their committee, and in part was this paid surrogacy bill. So this year the paid surrogacy bill comes back again. And the proponents of the bill, one of them is a very talented legislator from Seattle. He happens to be a homosexual, and he was a big proponent of Washington State. He was a sponsor of the bill when Washington State became the first bill to pass marriage equality. But for him, and the reason he passed the bill is he and his husband had to go to California to adopt, and they entered in a off-the-record commercial surrogacy arrangement to do that. So when they had kids, it was a commercial surrogacy. So for them, it's really tied up in, you know, their view of the evolving family and some personal stories of this. And of course, you know, when we talk about it, we would say, but look at the slippery slope here. Look at the gray area. Look at the risks you're taking when you don't maintain the traditional family unit, and look at these things and introduce commercialization, essentially payment for the womb and renting the womb on this. I mean, and then I would say, even in France, they don't do this. Even in the European Union, that was a speech. But for them, it's really kind of tied up in that evolving family unit, and he would speak from his own personal experience, you know, on the Senate floor, that they think, some of them think that that's their best way to have kids, or most reasonable way to have kids. So that's what I know about it, Gretchen.
Okay, Pat, and I think that's probably should do it unless somebody has a really, really good question.
I don't know if this is a good question, but it's really been frustrating me is not hearing more discussion in hardening our schools. And the first thing that comes up is guns, and it drops, nobody's going to talk about that. There are so many other ways, and especially with you, with law enforcement backgrounds and things, what can you add to that? I would think there would be Democrats also that would be for some of these hardening aspects.
Wow, this is a six-pack of beer conversation we're about to open up here. And I'll try and make it short. Some of the same deficiencies, vulnerabilities, soft target aspects that you're talking about here that have nothing to do with armed teachers in schools. Although I did sign on to a bill to allow for different schools to actually go through school districts to go through processes to allow this to occur. I'll touch on that as a side note. Nonetheless, when Freeman had the shooting, the first thing I did is I contacted Colonel David Grossman, who wrote the book on killing, and the second book, How Not to Teach Our Children to Kill. And the guy's a Western Hemisphere expert on hardening targets out there that are soft targets, specifically on not just the gun aspect, but the conditioning aspect, the mental health aspect here. So many different parts of the integrated model that allow kids to feel at ease to do that kind of thing, or that's the ultimate solution. They immediately go to that today. He offered to come in pro bono, free, and give a seminar to District 81 and all the regional districts. And what I did is I went to Michael Dunn, Educational Services District 101 superintendent, and I asked Mike, I said, look, I've got this guy on deck, he'll do this for free on this, and go through the processes that you're talking about here, the alternates to just gun, and guns aren't enough in the schools. There's a lot more to it than that. Michael Dunn turned me down on that, not because Michael Dunn thought it was a bad idea, but because when Michael Dunn put it out there to the several principals, a number of people out there were soft enough, liberal enough, democratic enough that they didn't like the message that David Grossman was going to bring in. It's a Jack Nicholson moment. They couldn't handle the truth, and so they didn't want to listen to the messenger on this. And the guy's got a record of success, a record of publication. His original book is a result of a master's thesis that was expanded and published. The guy's no dummy, and the guy's been there. He's a real deal, and he's acknowledged as this. The people here don't want to hear that, and that's part of the problem. What we're doing, we're trying our darndest. I'm inserting myself in the situation here, trying to take advantage of a bad situation and provide some good results so it doesn't happen again. So we actually prepared for it next time, and we're being shut down. We'll keep trying, we'll keep fighting on something like this, the different alternates we have available out there.
How long is that video?
However, we've got a situation here where we've actually done what we can do at this point here. We need to back up, take a look at it from another angle because we're unsuccessful there. You bring a good point.
Yeah, that is a multifaceted problem, and if we just focus on guns, we're not going to go anywhere. What I'm going to do is say thank you very much to all of you, and like I promised those that have things to say at the end of the meeting, we do have our open mic now. So folks, we have some new candidates, we've got some people with other issues, so we'll let them say a few words now. Thank you so very much for coming. Appreciate it.
So what was my attendance record?
32, I believe it was. Here you go.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good for a week.
Just one thing really quick. Gary Edwards lives over in the Argonne and Marengo area. He's looking for a ride home. If there's anybody in the Argonne and Marengo area, got one. All right, perfect.
Okay.
Can you ask the candidates or the legislators to stay, maybe?
Sure. So legislators, if you can stay, we'd appreciate.
This legislator is saying he's getting the little boys are first.
Yeah, right. You can have a potty break. We'll let you. So
We got
So, Senator Padden, if you'll just stay for a few minutes, because these folks are, they want y'all to hear what they have to say. Yep. So who's going to be first? Okay. I don't have a microphone yet.
He's got all the mics. The mic guy.
Okay, so this is our open mic session. We normally do this in the beginning, but I thought we really needed to give these guys all the time that we could. So don't leave, please, because normally you'd have to be here. You'd never have heard the senators and the representatives.
Hello, let's pay attention.
So if you could all, and these guys will hang around. Buy them a drink, for God's sakes. They deserve 2 or 3 of them. So you are? Joanna Hyatt, and you are here for?
The sex education fiasco.
Oh, the sex education fiasco in District 81. So here we go.
We're going to get to the bottom of this.
Thank you. Well, I have 2 minutes, so as a potential future politician, I'll take 3.5.
No way.
No?
Not
okay.
here.
So I don't know how many of you have been following, but last year, District 81 was looking to adopt a new curriculum for our elementary, junior high, and high schools that was directly from Planned Parenthood. We're talking about sex here. This is very interesting. So it was from Planned Parenthood in Massachusetts, and it was being pushed
Glenn, could you sit down, please?
It was being pushed as the choice for our students. And enough of us parents put some pressure on them, had a little bit of an uproar. About 10 of us showed up at a June school district meeting, and it was enough to make them pull it and reevaluate what they were going to do. So in the last 2 weeks, the district has released their new proposed curriculum that we honestly expect to be adopted. And instead of it being completely from one Planned Parenthood curriculum, it is now from 2 Planned Parenthood curriculums. And so 2/3 Planned Parenthood and then 1/3 created by the district. So it really doesn't get any better. And what we're asking for people in Spokane to do is to begin to show up to school board meetings. They are on the 2nd and 4th Wednesday of every month, and the district needs to hear from the parents who say, we do not want this for our kids. We do not want our children being taught sex education that really encourages sexual activity, sex education that seeks to destroy inhibitions. You know, when you have 7th graders sitting in a co-ed classroom trying to put on condoms, the problem is then you are teaching these children, no, this is fine, let's talk about this, let's remove any sense of awkwardness or shame so that all of you can then go out and practice this later together on each other. And so in the next couple of weeks, we expect that the Human Growth and Development Committee is going to pass the recommended curriculum, probably by a vote of 10-4. And then there will be a period of about 2 weeks where we can go and make our voices heard to the district. And so we need parents to show up. We need anybody who is in District 81 that you know to come to those meetings and comment and just say, this is how we want our kids taught on this very important topic. And then we'll probably have until fall to continue to rally people to create alternatives. The fight's not over, and even when it gets adopted, we have a responsibility to continue to speak truth and then encourage parents to actually pull their kids out of the program in the fall if need be. And if the district sees enough of a pushback, they get very nervous. They get very scared. Just a few parents can have them running. So please get the word out. Please let people know. You can talk to me. Rob Chase graciously invited me here tonight to speak on this. And again, just letting parents know, show up, say a few words, even just be present and let the district know that we are watching and we are not going to be silent on this. So thank you very much.
Thank you. And what I want you guys to know is this is District 81 she's talking about, but it's the same thing as the city of Spokane. They ooze out into the other areas. And so how soon? Right. So that's right. So you guys have got, this isn't just District 81. Gretchen's jumping out of her pants here. So come on up here and tell us what you're going to say. We can't hear you.
This is a trendsetter.
Yeah, I mean, you got to understand, if it starts in Spokane, it's going to just ooze out to the rest of you.
Okay, I was one of the ones that was at that meeting. And I've also written a letter to Sean Vestal. I don't know if you saw his commentary in the paper a few weeks ago, just saying how the Planned Parenthood curriculum needs to be adopted and how awful we are for not adopting it. But what I want to say to you, I haven't gone down again to look at the curriculum, but you can do that. So I encourage you not only to go to the school board meetings, but I encourage you to you can just drop in. And they tell me, I think it's the 4th floor, and you just say you want to look at the curriculum. so that I think if individuals go down there or a couple at a time go down there, that will also send a message to them how concerned we are about it. So I hope not that you will do that, write letters to the editor, whatever that you need to do, and write to the school board. The letter I wrote a 3.5-page letter to Sean Vestal, and in addition I sent it to all school board members. I sent it to Shelley Redinger, the superintendent, as well as the assistant superintendent. So I encourage you to do that too, and kind of look I wouldn't adopt necessarily the religious argument when you send it, because keep in mind that these are moderate to liberal people. So what argument works with that group? So
Thank you,
keep
Gretchen.
that in mind.
Thank you.
Anyway.
Emphasize that we want medically accurate information
Thank you.
for our kids that are not in them. That's work.
Oh.
My email address? It's
Thank you, Gretchen.
Joanna, Joanna, Joanna Hyatt, like the hotel, HYATT.com. And a group of us are meeting monthly. Right now we're meeting every 2 weeks. You can come hang out with us on Monday nights as we are strategizing how we address this. So.
Okay, we'll get that out on a Facebook or something that way. So as you heard tonight, Senator Baumgartner is going to run for the position of treasurer, and I believe that is probably a good move for his family. And I know Eleanor will appreciate having you home, or she thinks at this point she'll appreciate having you home more. And so that means Jeff Holy is going to run for that senator position. We want to make sure that he does attain that. And we have a person here this evening, Jenny Graham, who is going to run for the Jeff Holy position. So Jenny, would you like to come up and talk to us?
Hello. Okay, thank you. I'm excited about the opportunity that this open seat now is bringing for the things that I've been involved with in the past. A lot of you don't know me. I'm hoping to change that. I have been involved with past legislation with Jeff Holy and John Ahern passing legislation that was dealing with changing the child sexual assault statutes of limitations. And I want to thank you for being involved with what you're working with the school district. I've always been a mom that's been involved with that. That's part of why I'm just getting involved with this now at a higher level. Raising my family was very important to me. Being involved in the community has been very important to me. And with that, I'm a wife, I'm a mother, I'm a new grandmother of 3, and I'm a veteran. And I'm ready. I have been through trial by fire on a lot of this. I'm a lot like Jacqueline Maycomer, so I'm very excited to get to know her a little better. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, is there anybody else that would like to make an announcement? Mr. Chase?
Okay, I don't know everybody here, but I know most of you. But if you don't know me, I'm Rob Chase. I am Spokane County Treasurer, and I'm running for Spokane County Commissioner. And thank you. To go back in history a little bit, in 2010, I decided when during the primary, they're already counting the ballots to go for Spokane County Treasurer. And I had friends that said, gosh, this is crazy. It's just a waste of money. You're not going to win. But I thought, I might have a chance. I think it's a Republican year, and we'll see it happen. So I came in second place. I got 2%. And then I won in the general by 2%. So I became the first Republican treasurer since 1956. And, yeah. But when I was making my flyers, I was trying to think, well, this sounds pretty good. I think the founding, I didn't know what to say. I didn't know anything about county treasurer, and I found out no one else really did either, what they do. But I wrote, I think the founding fathers wanted people from Main Street to run for these positions for a term or two. And that sounds pretty good. But I didn't think about it afterwards. And everyone was focused at the Spokesman Review in Inlander on the Baumgartner Mars race at that time. So about a week after I won, the Spokes Review finally called me and said, well, tell us about yourself and everything. So they said, well, what is your goal, as a county treasurer? And the thing I could think of was I always, when I finish, whatever time that is, want to be remembered as a good county treasurer. And I think I've done that, and I know I could be a good county commissioner too. So that's why I'm running. But at the time I thought, the people said you're going to need $50,000 to run this and you're still not going to win. I raised $7,000 and I won. So, but I did, it sort of haunted me to, you got to keep this. What are you going to do in 2018 when the 8 years are up? And that was going through my head. And then Mike Volz, he got elected to the legislature, so I'd plan on handing it off to Mike Volz. And but I don't want him to leave the legislature. He's doing a great job, as you can see. And but I still want to keep my 2-term pledge. And then there's other sharks were circling, and I thought, what am I going to do? And I went to Olympia about 2 weeks ago, and Senator Baumgartner approached me and said, well, here you may not be running for county treasurer again. And I said, well, that's right, but I don't quite know what to do. He said, well, I'm interested. And I thought, wow, that's great. Here's the guy who introduced my very first bill to allow partial payments on property taxes. It's been a win-win. So we're still the only county in the state doing it, and every taxpayers love it, and our cashiers love it too. So this is a kindred spirit in a lot of ways, and I think he'll make a great treasurer. So as commissioner, what I promised to do is to energetically run a hard campaign, and also to, county treasurer, to make sure it's not about me, but that I'm about being the county commissioner. So I'll say it again, the county commissioner would not be about me, it would be about myself being about the job of county commissioner. I think that's important to say. And I also plan on looking at all the taxes to make sure that we spend the money we're already getting and wisely before we start looking for any more. And also the litmus test is for me is anything. So all of our operations, are they adding value or adding waste? And I think we can, at least at the local level, you have more control than they do in Olympia, over there. So I think I'm excited about the race. And I think I can be a good county commissioner. I'm having a fundraiser at La Belle Vie, which is down there by Barker Road on Appleway, on March 29th. And if you can't make it, I did get my donation envelopes today. So, consider, because I would like to have signs to be able to pass out at that. So anyway, I thank you for your support and your prayers. And I'll turn the microphone back over to Cecily.
And I do believe we are probably done for the evening, unless is there anybody else with anything to say for the good of the group? One thing I am going to say, Michael Baumgartner, is I'm going to send you a link and to a program that actually what we did last month is we were talking about how our nation morally is declining and slipping and slipping and slipping. And it seems to be coming up more and more. And Tucker Carlson started doing a special on Wednesday evenings called Men in America. And it was very enlightening, the first one, which was last week, and I found it on YouTube. And since you have so many young sons, I'm going to send it to you because you have an awesome responsibility to see that these boys are brought up as men and not in the image of what we're messing our society up with. So, and I encourage all of you to be looking for that. It's Tucker Carlson, Men in America, every Wednesday in March. So last Wednesday, this Wednesday, and the next two. Do look them up because yeah, we're messing our country up big time, guys. Really big time. Oh yes, we do have a new state committee woman within the Spokane County Republican Party. Susan Wilmoth resigned. The party had their election on Saturday the 10th, and we elected Beva Miles. Beva, stand up. You all met her last month. And As I told you guys, I strongly supported Beva, and I truly feel that she will give the sensibility and structure to the county party that it desperately needs. So I think it was a good move, even though a lot of you guys go, whoa, what are you doing? But I think it'll be good. Do you want to say anything, Beva? Come on up here. No, you got to come up. If you're going to talk, you got to come up here.
Set the clock. 2 minutes.
We know how to turn off microphones. It's fine.
That's okay. I'm like votes. I can.
So this is Beva Miles, everybody.
Yeah. Hi. You know, I want to thank you all because it takes a great deal of trust to do something that felt a little uncomfortable to you all. I want to thank Jacqueline. Where is she?
Out in the hall.
Okay. Jacqueline?
You're being thanked.
Jacqueline? The other Jacqueline. Maycumber, I love you. You know I love you. Jacqueline gave a heck of a speech, and she is the future of our party. This is youth in action. So thank you, Jacqueline. You did a great job. Okay? I just want you to know I will earn your trust. Keep your eyes open. Watch the board. Some of the concerns that were mentioned are my concerns as well. That's why I'm doing it. So just watch. I'll be there.
Thank you. Okay, I believe that is all we have for this evening. I really want to thank our legislators for being here. Great turnout. Hopefully they don't have to come to every meeting and do the same thing. Let them off with this one. And thanks everybody for coming out tonight.